Wacky Wednesday, and on Wacky Wednesday, we're going to do our lesson at a whisper. Now, we're working on Unit 7, which is geometry. Now, we're going to start with our BDN, but I want you guys to press pause so you can do it on your own. Okay, go ahead, press pause. Alright guys, welcome back. Today's BDN has 2 questions and we're going to answer them as a group. Now it says both the shapes below have the same area. Find a possible length and width for the second shape. Jimmy bought 2 cakes for his mom's birthday. Both cakes have an area of 30 square inches. Find a possible length and width for the second cake. The length of cake 2 would be blank and the width would be blank. Explain how you found your length and width. Okay, I'm back and I want to share my answer with you. So they wanted us to find a possible length and width for the second cake. We knew that the length and the width for the other cake was 15 and 2. Now, in order for us to find the length and the width for the other cake, I had to think back to some of the skills that we learned earlier in the school year. So, the length of the cake 2 would be 5 and the width would be 6. Now, the way that I can explain that is, in the question it told us that both cakes had an area of 30. So that's our known. We know that both cakes equal out to an area of 30. I know that an area is length times width. So I also knew that 15 and 2 were factors of 30. Now, who remembers that term, factors? Factors are numbers that can be multiplied together to find the answer. Now, if we're looking for factors, we know that 15 and 2 are factors of 30. So I thought, man, if 15 and 2 are factors of 30, all I have to do is think of 2 more factors of 30 to find my answer. And that's what I did. So when I was thinking about 30 as my answer, my factors had to be 5 and 6, because 5 times 6 equal 30. So that's the way we can explain the answer to our PDN. Now, today in class, Kipsters will be able to identify and measure angles as turns and recognize them in various contexts. Making turns. So, when we look at a clock, the easiest way to figure out how to make turns on a circular protractor is to associate it with a clock. Now, every one of us have seen a clock before. Now, what I did was I went ahead and drew some clocks, and I'm going to make sure I put it on the bigger scale. So, if you guys can see. Now, on the first image that I have, it's showing 12 o'clock. Now right here at 12 o'clock, we know that this is base. But when we turn it one time, we get the 90-degree angle. So we have 0 degrees, 90 degrees, and from there we move on to 180 degrees, and then we move on to 270 degrees, and last it goes right back around to the 12 and the 12, which makes the last turn equal 360 degrees.
So on our paper, we can write that the first turn is 90 degrees. The second turn is 180 degrees. Our next turn is 270 degrees, and our final turn is 360 degrees. So we're starting here to 90, to 180, to 270, all the way back around to 360. All right, let's move on to our practice. Now, number 1 says, Joe, Steve, and Bob stood in the middle of the yard and faced the house. Joe turned 90 degrees, so they're facing the house. Joe turned 90 degrees, so that means he's facing the fence. Steve turned 180 degrees, so he's facing the house and he turned 180 degrees. So now he's facing that's right, the tree. Now, our next person says Bob turned 270 degrees. So we're going to start by facing the house and go all the way to 270. So Bob is facing the barn. So when we write it out on the line, Joe is facing the fence. Steve is facing the tree. And Bob is facing the barn. Everyone started by facing the house, but when they turned around at different angles, that's what determined what they were looking at. Question number 2. Monique looked at the clock at the beginning of class and at the end of class. How many degrees did the minute hand turn from the beginning of class to the end of class? Now, let's zoom this in because this is really little. See if we can zoom this in to 200. Now, at the beginning of class, it was 11 o'clock. At the end of class, it is 11:45. So, we need to know how many degrees did the minute hand turn. It started all the way right here at the 12 and then at the 11. So it was really close. The way that we figure that out is by establishing how far is each number to the next. So if I were to move from the 11 to the 12, that would be 30 degrees. Each space is separated by 30 degrees, going all the way around. So the easiest way that I think to do this is to count by threes instead of 30. So let's start. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Who's singing the song? All right, 21, 24, 27, 30. So that is a separation of 300 degrees. So our answer for this question is 300 degrees. All right, let's move on to number 3. The skater jumped into the air and did a 360. What does that mean? Well, that means that the skater completed a jump let's spell that right. That went in a full circle. 360 means to go in a full circle. All right, question number 4. Mr. Martin drove away from his house without his wallet. He did a 180. Where is he heading now? So let's use what we have. He was at home, got in the car, heading to the store. Well, on the way to the store, he discovered that he didn't have his wallet. So he did a 180. Did he turn around in a complete circle? That's 360, right? So if he did a 180, all he did was go back home. So Mr. Martin went back home. A 180 is to turn around. Again, a 180 is to turn around. Let me spell this right. Martin only has one T. Now, we're moving on to the independent practice. A lot of the things that we learned in class are here in the independent practice. If you need to, you can pause the video, go back, listen to my directions, and you should be able to answer the questions on your own. We were making sure that we can meet our aim for today, and that was to identify and measure angles as turns and recognize them in different contexts. And that's what we did. We did it on the clock, we did it as a map, and we also did it in a diagram that showed someone going from one place to another and had to complete a 180. So it kind of puts everything into context. Make sure that you're working through the problems, you're using logic, and you're taking your time. Have a great day. Wacky Wednesday is over. See ya.